Hello crew, it is I, Ponyboy Darian, and today I'm back with another devlog. Kind of. We're going to be doing a tutorial today on how to use the resource saver, and then later we're going to kind of go over what we've been working on. If you're here for the tutorial, that'll come first. If you're here for the devlog, that'll be at the end of the video. I'll leave some timestamps so you can skip ahead. Alright, first things first, what is the resource saver? Why would you need it? Well, there's a few different ways you can save your game in Godot, but there are certain things called resources, and those you can't really save with the normal file access system. You need to save it with ResourceSaver. So if you're using a resource, such as this one right here, you might want to save such data, such as the player's name, health, inventory. There's a bunch of things you can do with this. So what I've got in front of you is a scene that I made. It's got some simple things. You enter a player name, you set their health, and you have an inventory. I'll show you guys all of this at the end of the video, but I'm going to focus on the resource saver for now. So first we have our resource. It's the same things I showed you before. It's got the player name, health, inventory, you name it. It's attached to the player script, which it's the only thing in the player script right now. What we want to do is we want to be able to take this information, Bob, health, and let's say he has some keys. We want to be able to save this. Now, I have these buttons up here, but they don't do anything. Much like me. See, I just want it back. It's not coming back. Not yet. What we need is a way to save that data. What we have here is two buttons, save and load. Currently, they don't do anything, but we're about to change that. Let's say we go up to node signals, and I'm just going to link what happens when you press save. On save pressed. It's pretty simple. We just need resource saver dot save, and it has a few arguments, but what we care about right now is the resource we want to save and the path. So what I have up here is a bunch of onreadies, but what matters is these two right here. The path is just where you want to save. What you want to do is make sure you're saving in the user data. That way it's specific to each individual user. If you were to save this to res, it would just save it in the engine, which would make it to where that data is saved for every single person who would use the game. So we're going to save it to user, // and then I'm calling it player data. What's important is because it's a resource, you want to call it TRES at the end. It's the file type that resources use, and then for player data, because it's attached to the player, I just reference downer.playerData, which is this right here. Now that we have those two, we just want to put in, once again, the data you want saved and the file path, which, there we are. Alright, so let's test that out real quick. We once again want Bob to be saved. We want the health this time to be 5. He's doing pretty good today. He lost his keys, but he did buy a pizza. Let's save that information. Now, we don't have the load function, so if I change these to be gibberish nonsense, we can't go back. But in order to show that it did work, if you're on PC, this is Windows R, and then %appdata%. Either way, it's just getting to your user data. What you do is you'd scroll down to Godot, you'd go into that, you'd go into app user data, and then here are all your projects. We're looking at resource saver example right now. And what you have here is that save path that you made. If you open that up, it gives you the resource that you saved, and then all of the values attached to it. So, you might be asking, is it that easy to save with a resource? Yes, actually it is. It's just equally as easy to load with a resource. Now, we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to go to the load button I've made. We're going to go to its node signals, and we're going to connect pressed to the main scene. What you want to do before trying to load a file is check if it exists yet. If you try and load a file that doesn't exist, it is simply going to crash. So we're going to do if ResourceLoader.exists. It's got a function built in that checks if the path exists. So once again, the argument is the path we've made. If it exists, now we want it to load the data we had saved. So what we do is we set player data equal to what we load, which is super easy to load, ResourceLoader.load. And then once again, you've got a few arguments here. 1 is super important. First, it's the path. Easy enough. Second, don't worry about that one too much, but what is important is the cache mode. Basically, it defaults to 1 on cache mode, which is reuse. Now, what that basically does is tries to pull the same file that you saved in the first place. It'll try loading that save file again. What we want is to ignore the cache and load what's on the file. That way, if you save it the game again, you can load something new. So we're going to set that to 0. It's important to have that, otherwise it simply will not load. Let's make sure not to forget the else statement. If the file doesn't exist, we just want the function to return. You can kind of do whatever you want with this, but in this case, it's just not going to run anything else. Now, if we were to run this, load, now you might be asking, why didn't it work? Well, it did work. It's just we also have to update what's on screen. So while the resource is loaded, nothing told the game, hey, let's update the information. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a function called update data. Super easy. It's going to be called every time you load, and function update data, and then it will return void. All we want this to do is reference the 3 different strings that I have here, the player name, player health, and inventory. So what I'm going to do is write that out real quick. Alright, this should update the inventory's text to show the array in string format of the inventory, the player's name as the player's name, and the player's health as the string of the health. Since it's an integer, it needs converted to a string. And if we load this up, oh man, I really miss Bob. I really miss Bob and his 5 health and his keys, you know? I think he lost his keys, didn't he? He needs his pizza back. Boom, there we go. And we can do whatever we want with this. Let's say it's still Bob. He took some hits. That pizza was not good. He still has the pizza, though, because I didn't implement removing things from this inventory. Let's say on the street he found a leaf. He loves that leaf. All right, we're going to make sure he has that leaf forever and always. And then, oh no, he picked up a stick, but he practices leave no trace, so load. Stick's gone from his inventory. We can do this as much as we want. He's at 1 health. Boom, reload. His name's not even Bob anymore. It's Harold. Ah, that's weird. Boom, he's Bob. So this works with whatever you put in that resource. You can pull individual variables from that resource, such as what I did here with player data.inventory.player name. That's all just referenced from the player data itself. Now, in case you just want to see how I set up all these buttons, I'll just scroll through this code real quick. In the meantime, I just want to go over some reasons why not a lot of people decide to use the resource loader and saver. Now, while it works for saving resources and works really easily and really well, it does unfortunately leave a bit of a security breach in your files. So resources are loaded no matter what the file holds, and that is very susceptible to malware being put inside and just immediately loaded into your game. Now this is only an issue if people decide to share save files and maybe mod the game. It just depends on how big your game is, but it does make those files susceptible to whatever viruses are out there. And let's be honest, nobody likes those. So while it does have its deficits compared to file access, there are some remedies. Let's go to the asset library real quick, and what we can find if you look up resource is already a few things that might help. Resource encryption is one that I've gone through the files of, and pretty much it tries to encrypt your saver and loader the same way that you can encrypt the file access saver and loader. As well as Godot's safe resource loader, which tries to make sure that there's nothing extraneous put into your resource. While neither of these things are 100% protective, a lot of things on the internet aren't, and honestly any defense is better than no defense. So if you want to keep your data safe, you want to keep your game safe, I'd recommend looking at those, maybe making a version of that for yourself. They both seem pretty sound, and while I don't think it's easy to use them both in tandem, you can still use both of them at the same time. So let's take a look at how me and Gopala use this in our project, Downer. What we have right now is a resource saver that saves the inventory data and the collectible data, because we're going to use that separately. Now doing it this way means you are going to create two different files, which is again what we're intentionally trying to do here, but just note, if you want to save things in one file, you should probably save it in one resource. And then what we do right after is check if that safe path exists, and then load that data. Since we're doing it twice, we're also loading another thing, only if that exists. And then, same thing as update data, we set player inventory data. Now, what does that mean? Well, I am excited to show you what we have been working on. So here we have a little test scene. On top of that, we have an inventory. Ooh, collectibles and inventory. How beautiful. Well, we got these lovely floating objects in front of us. What do? Well, we picked up a screwdriver. What we got here is just a little description of what it is. And let's say, man, I really wanted to pick up that screwdriver and this key. I don't want these matchboxes, but I do want this collectible. What's that? Ooh. And yeah, I'm like, man, I gotta pick up my kids from school. I don't want to lose all this progress I've made. Well, lucky for us, we got a little test button right here to test saving. And la 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 la. Whoa, we're back. And with our data, because we got that lovely save and load button. On top of that, the inventory now has a use. Let's say we go up to this window and we need to use the screwdriver. Boom, use, and then you can start whatever interaction you want. Super cool, super awesome. Gopala made this system himself, all of the inventory. He did have some help from the YouTuber Devlog Logan, and we'll put that channel in the description. Shout out to you. But otherwise, yeah, we've got this lovely scene, and as you might have heard in the previous video, we're planning on expanding the scope of our game, going into a more generative experience rather than a single one-time experience. So that'll be fun. But ladies and gentlemen, that is not all. You see, Gopala has been working on something. Let's go check in on him real quick.
No. Yes. Come on. Ah!
Oh yeah, that's right. 2D movement setup. I know it's not a lot, but it's exciting, and he seemed pretty excited about it too, so you should be as well. Otherwise, that's pretty much all we've got for you today. If you'd like to see how we worked on the inventory a little bit, we've got just some code, you know, nothing really too interesting, but there it is nonetheless. And thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to keep up with the content, make sure to subscribe. Leave comments if you have any suggestions, or if you have any requests, we can do that as well. Either way, thanks for coming along. Pony Boy out.